everyone. You are listening to In the Books. We are a period drama podcast. I'm Michelle. I live in the States. You can find me at Musings on Instagram and Twitter.
I'm Rita. I live in England. I'm at Annoying Rita on Instagram and Twitter. Welcome to the 5th episode in our series of podcasts on the Empress / Die Kaiserin. This week's episode was called The Shoes. And a lot happened. Like, a lot happened. So here comes...
A lot.
We've already gone weird. Okay, so here comes another lengthy recap.
The episode began with a flashback to fake Leontine, aka Ava, stopping the carriage that the real Leontine is traveling to the palace in. Ava's boyfriend, Egon, then slits Leontine's throat. Isn't that special? And Ava takes possession of all her belongings, including the letter offering Leontine a position as a lady-in-waiting. Yeah, first minute. Holy crap. Anyway, back in the present, Elizabeth sneaks out of her bed, through the palace and into the gardens. She climbs up one of the trees and begins writing poetry and chain smoking. Hearing a bird hoot in the distance, she starts mimicking it. She is found by fake Leontine, who climbs in beside her and starts making bird noises of her own. And they both start to giggle so loudly they are found by a guard. Fake Leontine hops down and makes an excuse about seeing a rabies-ridden fox to cover for Elizabeth so the Empress isn't caught out in her nightgown.
Inside the palace, Theo awakes Fran. He notices Elizabeth is gone, but doesn't really have any time to dwell on the matter. He dresses solemnly in his most imperial-looking black uniform, and when Elizabeth returns from her excursion in the garden at daybreak, she finds Franz already gone. Franz is seeing off troops for the border. They stand at attention around him as he attempts to give a rousing speech. It starts off a bit lackluster because he attempts the usual platitudes about fighting for their god and their country and blah blah blah. But as he looks at their terrified faces, some of them looked very, very young, he realizes that there are no words of comfort that he can offer them. Instead, he offers them his sincere thanks and tells them, although they do not want a war, they will protect their nation and their loved ones. The officers look appreciative as they are called to attention and leave. Franz, however, still looks haunted. On the way home, his carriage is struck by a rock and someone yells warmonger at him, which triggers Franz into a PTSD flashback to the moment he was stabbed in the neck by Janos Libenyi. I still don't know if that's how you pronounce his name. Sorry, guys.
Hey, I'm impressed.
He then has a panic attack.
Back at the palace, Elizabeth is being hoisted into another gigantic dress while she is lectured by Matron Zwig about her forthcoming visit to an iron foundry. The royal family are seen as divine beings, which means no touching, no eye contact, and no casual conversations with people. Sounds like a laundry list of things that are about to happen. Anyway, Sophie then enters the room and begins tightening Elizabeth's corset roughly. She reminds her daughter-in-law that the conflict brewing is her fault, and she needs to do Franz a solid by showing her face to the public and rousing some goodwill. Matron then offers her another raw egg to drink. Elizabeth tries to refuse as she is already feeling unwell. Sophie is like, well, the soldiers going to war aren't gonna be feeling very well either, missy. So Elizabeth forces it down, only to end up gagging. Along with me, thank you. The only person to comfort her is Leontine. Fake Leontine.
Fake Leontine,
We then meet a young, raggedy-looking girl named Heidi, who's got an unwashed face and half her foot hanging out of her shoes. Her brother calls her to go to work, but then surprises her with bright red berries as a special treat.
You do not know how long I was trying to work out what kind of berries they were. I was like, what if this is important, Michelle? And I do not know what berries this is. Could be anything. Okay.
Yeah.
Back at the palace, Franz is brooding at the window when a livid Alexander von Bach enters his study to tell him that their banker has cancelled all future installments of their loan because instead of engineering a railway, they are instead sending 200,000 soldiers out to the east. Franz screams, "I know! Leave me alone!" He then throws everything off of his desk in a fit of rage, including a little steam engine paperweight. I mean, this show and the details, guys, I swear to God, when I saw that paperweight, I was like, give them an Emmy, they need it. He then makes Theo clean his desk up for him, which was an asshole move, but then immediately apologizes to Theo. So mixed bag here. Theo tells him that the Empress wants to see him, and I brace myself for an argument, but I needn't have worried. It was actually kind of sweet. Fran started off looking a little forlorn when he tells her that if she keeps creeping around at night, they will end up missing each other. But when she starts asking about the troops, he's able to unburden some of his sadness and tell her that it feels like a stone, which I honestly thought was quite poetic. Like, maybe he should get into some poetry writing. It might make him feel better.
Seriously.
Elizabeth tells him about her upcoming visit and says that maybe one day the Iron Foundry will be building rails for them, which makes Franz smile. Much to everyone's relief. His smile is so cute.
Yes.
We then head over to Max's room. Very different vibe. He is post-coitus with Elizabeth's lady-in-waiting, Countess Charlotte. I was like, oh, damn, Charlotte, choices have been made.
Yes.
He's doing some brooding of his own over a ring. And so when Charlotte asks about it, we learn that it was an engagement ring that he planned to give to someone, but she died. Charlotte tells him that perhaps he will find love again, but he yells at her to leave. So maybe not the vibe. He then goes full American Psycho and practices a speech into the mirror. He addresses his people as the new emperor, but gets repeatedly interrupted by his pet monkey as he tries to declare himself humble. I mean, even the monkey calls bullshit.
Yes. Nice try, Maxie. Time for another cabinet meeting. One of the ministers declares that as soon as reinforcements arrive at the border, they will be ready to attack. But Franz tells them no. He wants the troops to stand firm and hold their line at the border. The cabinet do not look impressed, so Sophie calls his decision wise and says it will demonstrate strength, but diplomatic relations will also be maintained. Von Bach then brings up the rising tensions in Vienna. He worries that the head of the gendarmerie will not aid the situation with his usual thuggery. Franz orders that they tread carefully, and then leaves. Sophie follows Franz out of the room and tells him that while he may be hurt about his railway setback, it's only a matter of timing and his ideas will come to pass eventually. Franz worries that it's too dangerous for Sophie to be sending Elizabeth out into Vienna, but Sophie blows him off. When chaos reigns, we impose our control. We don't pacify. Tell me that you are with me, Franz. Franz side-eyes her and tells her that the world is changing, and the question is whether their family will change too.
Really hoping Max changes. Really hope.
Yeah. Elizabeth is in her carriage on the way to the ironworks, accompanied by Matrons Wig and Loozy Woozy. That's such a cute name. Loozy Woozy. While this may be Elizabeth's first time, Ludwig is an old pro, and he gives her some advice. When he's nervous, he always says, "How nice, thank you kindly," and bows his head. He makes Elizabeth practice. He also gives her a terrifying tip, not to eat or drink anything offered to them, as it might be poisoned. Fun times! Yay!
Lovely to get poisoning advice from a literal child. That's so scary.
God.
They arrive at the foundry, and there is already quite the crowd growing to see Elizabeth. She's introduced to the owner, and when he says what an honor it is to meet her, she immediately pulls out How nice. Thank you kindly. Very funny.
Yes.
She's introduced to the workers next and begins to notice their shabby appearance and large red welts on their hands. The owner announces that the workers have also sacrificed a day's wages in support of the army, which startles Elizabeth, as it's very clear that none of them can afford to be so generous. She then asks to go inside and see the foundry working conditions, much to the annoyance of Matron, who insists they have to leave. Elizabeth enters the working foundry in her big, poofy, impractical dress, and the air is filled with smoke and sparks fly up from the molten iron being poured. She looks like she might catch a light any second now. Oh, wow, I was nervous.
Yeah, me too.
Ludwig and the matron follow behind her in trepidation, and Ludwig begins to choke on the fumes. Little girl Hida, that we met earlier, offers Ludwig a glass of water to aid his cough. When Elizabeth thanks her, Hida drops the glass in shock. Elizabeth goes to help her clean it up. At this point, the crowd is becoming louder and louder outside, and you can hear them screaming out for Elizabeth. The head of the gendarmerie asks her to please leave, but Elizabeth refuses. Instead, she begins to talk to the little girl and learns that she's an orphan living with her brother. When she notices her torn-up shoes, she takes off her own and offers them to the little girl.
So, how many things on that list did that little scene check off? Think all 3 of them. When Matron and her wig sees what Elizabeth has done, she orders the head of the gendarmerie to carry Elizabeth out. An empress cannot walk out in bare feet, let alone in a factory. Elizabeth protests, but he picks her up and carries her to the carriage. The crowd, seeing her like that, begin to jeer, and before long, they are throwing mud at Ludwig and calling her imperial scum. The situation gets out of hand, and the crackdown on the populace is severe and violent. In the carriage, Elizabeth asks Ludwig if he is all right, but he pulls away. Matron yells at her for getting too close to commoners. Back at the palace, Malia has snuck into Leontine Ava's bedroom and is rummaging around. She finds a letter written to Leontine's mother and father in some very scrappy handwriting and stuffs it down her dress. She then goes to the wardrobe and pulls out the dress Leontine wore when she was killed. The neckline is covered in blood, which naturally freaks Amalia out. She hears something at the door and goes to hide.
Why did they keep the dress? Why
I know.
did they keep...
I know. I was like, burn the thing. Damn.
Damn.
Outside said door, fake Leontine is being hit on by Alexander von Bach. He tells her that when he saw her, he felt she was different, scary, but actually meant as a compliment, and invites her to look at the portrait gallery with him. In the corner of her eye, Ava spots Amalia leaving her room and tries to delay their date until later, but she is forced to agree and allow Amalia to escape.
Max has another secret meeting with the cabinet, who inform him that to stage his coup, he's gonna need 3 things: the support of the military, the Catholic Church, and of course, his mother. To convince the army, they need the blessing of the Archbishop Rusha, who in turn only listens to Sophie. At the end of the day, his coup lives and dies on the support of his mother. Max's response to this is to say, damn. And then he promises to deal with her, eventually. The cabinet all pushes him to act fast. The populace has turned against Franz, and they need to act while he is weak. Max tells them to give him a few days. Over at the palace, Theo announces Polar Bear Chick into Franz's room. She is wearing a gigantic bird feather collar for anyone who's still looking for bird imagery. Franz asks her to intervene with her new fiancé. He really needs that railway money. She uses her newfound power over him to humiliate him into begging her for help and then coercing him into a kiss. They're thankfully interrupted by Theo with the urgent news about the riot Elizabeth kind of sort of started. Elizabeth arrives at the palace and throws a massive strop, kicking the shoes her maid offers her, and flinging off her gloves, hat, coats, and then just running through the palace. She flops on her bed to cry dramatically into a pillow. Very teenage drama queen.
Yes.
Franz and his mother enter her room to find out what happened, but when Sophie starts in on another rant about Elizabeth's conduct, Franz sends her out. Smart move.
Yeah. Franz asks her why she didn't leave when advised to. Elizabeth says it was the right thing to do. She thinks the reason they are hated is because they treat commoners with contempt. Franz accuses her of being simplistic and not appreciating all the work he is doing behind the scenes to improve the public's living conditions. You know, like putting up with sexual assault. Yeah. He says her bleeding heart is of no help at all, so she starts throwing peaches at him. By the time she gets to the third peach, he is chasing her around the room to grab it out of her hand, but she then grabs his face and kisses him. They start having very passionate argument sex. A marital classic.
Greatest hits.
Cut to Sophie, looking at a mechanical songbird in a cage. Matron and her wig tells her she will find new and better ways to keep the girl under their control. Sophie tells her that it's a little too late for that, and if Elizabeth fails to fall pregnant again, there will be consequences, not only for Elizabeth, but also for everyone's least favorite minion, Matron. In other words, is hooked. Max meets Archbishop Rauscher in a church. Surprised he didn't go up in a puff of smoke when he stepped inside. Rauscher attempts to take confession. There is too long a list of sins to get through, so let's cut to the chase. Max tries to get his support, but Rauscher is like, you can't even recite the Lord's Prayer, and you want my support for a coup?
Sly.
That was a great line. He makes it clear that he is not a fan of Max's, and tells him he doesn't stand for anything. And if you stand for nothing, what will you die for? Nothing. Pretty sure this is a Hamilton lyric. Is Max Aaron Burr by any chance?
I love Aaron Burr, though, so that's the main difference. Get Leslie Odom Jr. on this bitch. Back at the palace, fake Leontine meets with one of her fellow revolutionaries and tells them she needs to leave immediately. Amalia has found her out, but she's told it's way too late for that. Plans are afoot, and it is happening. Before fake Leontine can get any details as to where or how this it is happening, the maid is forced to shuffle off. So great. Franz is gonna be attacked, everyone. Brace yourselves for next week's episode. Leave my baby alone! Okay, it's now night, and there is a huge storm raging. Ooh. Elizabeth wakes, puts on a nightdress, and begins to wander around the palace again. She climbs down the grand staircase and bumps into Max because, of course, he tells her there's a tunnel that they can take that leads out of the palace, and he asks her to pack a case and they can leave for Prague together. She toys with the idea of saying yes, which was insane to me, but then leaves him looking distraught at the bottom of the stairs. Bye-bye, Ma. Instead, Elizabeth knocks on fake Leontine's door and slumps on her bed for a little girl chat. Leontine, or fake Leontine, can tell she's upset and asks if she argued with Franz. Elizabeth responds with, if only he weren't the Emperor. Girl, that was like half the appeal of you marrying him in episode 1, so I'm not taking this. She then asks fake Leontine to tell her about herself, which is kind of hard given that she's not really a countess. So she tells her, if you want to hear a story about a happy childhood, then it's not mine, which is just vague enough to be about pretty much anyone. Elizabeth tells her that she's never met a strong person with a straightforward past, and she wonders what her purpose is to be.
Back at the foundry, the little girl from earlier is enjoying her new shoes when she notices a crowd huddled around a body. As she approaches, she realizes the body is in fact her brother. The gendarmes got a hold of him. Ava's boyfriend Egon is also there to declare they will avenge her brother with a revolution. The crowd all shouts, "Revolution!" as the episode ends.
To the revolution! To the revolution! Okay. So many Hamilton moments. So many. And what do you think of the episode?
I thought it was great. I thought it went quick. It really sped by, considering all of the stuff that happened in it. I was kind of like, wait, we're done? No.
It was actually one of the shorter episodes of the season. I noticed when I was doing the recap. I was like, oh, thank God. I can't handle the 90-minute episodes we got from Bridgerton. This show, the way it cranks up the tension, is really impressive.
Yeah.
It feels like Vienna is now like a powder keg that's about to explode in the final episode.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the way they've managed to bleed the storylines from the court out into the wider world of Vienna and how it's impacting the lives of all these normal people is really impressive.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes the stuff happening at court have extra weight and feel more present.
Yeah.
And I gotta give the show props because I think a lesser show would have just had Elizabeth give the girl the shoes and have her be like the people's hero that always knows the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
But then having that stinger at the end of the episode where you see the girl's brother has now died.
Yeah.
That was a real like, oh shit moment, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And makes you sort of start questioning like how culpable Elizabeth is in the cycle of violence that has now started in the city.
Yeah, we obviously know that she's not intending to be involved in the violence. As a matter of fact, she is looking for opportunities where she will be able to help the commoners, quote unquote. But she is pretty naive about the situation. The fact that it's just like, okay, I married an emperor. She didn't really think about the implications of what marrying the emperor was going to include. And so you can't just automatically say, oh, but she was only trying to do good and blah 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 blah. Yeah, she was trying to do good, but girl didn't think ahead.
Yeah. And it's like intentions matter, but not to that little girl, At the end of the day, do you think she wants the shoes or her brother still being alive? Like, the unintentional consequences of even the slightest thing as when you become somebody so powerful, like, is a lot to grapple with, I know, but I like that this show has the ability to showcase that rather than just going for Elizabeth's perfect and she cares about the people and yay. Because I think another show would have just been like, she helped the girl with the shoes, isn't she right? And you're like, no, not really. Like, not at the end of the day, no.
Yeah.
Those shoes don't even fit her. Like, what?
This is not gonna be helpful at all for this young woman.
That brings us into the argument that Franz and Elizabeth had at the end of the episode. I screech about how I just want them to be happy every week, but I actually really enjoyed seeing them argue. I loved that scene.
Yeah, me too.
I think it was a really well acted scene, and there was a little bit of comedy with the peach throwing, but I enjoyed it because I think the conflict gets down to right down to the heart of who they are. Like, Elizabeth is an idealist and she sees things in black and white terms. I think Franz is more of a pragmatist and he thinks about things with nuances. We've seen that throughout the season.
Yeah.
And they're butting heads because I think, they are really struggling to see each other's perspectives. Like, Franz just kept going, I don't understand! It's like, yeah. And it's such a testament to how good the writing is.
Yeah.
And how, it's only been 4 episodes, but we feel like we know these characters and they've been so well defined to me that I feel like, yeah, I understand why you're arguing. Like, you have completely different worldviews.
Yeah, that's for damn sure. Oh yeah. Now I enjoyed this quite a bit, and I really liked seeing how all of the things that are happening around them, how it's impacting the characterization. The characters are becoming even more and more multifaceted as we get further into this story. And, things are not as simple as black and white. They're swimming in a hell of a lot of gray right now. And,
definitely.
I can only hope that Elizabeth somehow winds up getting preggers so she can stop with the nasty egg in the morning business.
I do wonder if, why she started ganging up was because she's got morning sickness.
Yeah.
I was like, oh,
yeah,
because that would be a great sign.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we keep our eyes peeled for next week. I hope she's fucking pregnant, just so that she can stop drinking the egg.
Those nasty eggs.
But they probably, but what are they gonna make her eat when she's pregnant as well?
Oh.
The placenta was before she was pregnant.
Yeah.
What's gonna come down the line?
It is amazing just how superstitious this bunch of people are.
I mean, not that amazing. They were raised Catholic. That was me bagging on myself. What did you think about her line about, if only he wasn't emperor? Because that's an actual quote. That's one of her most famous quotes.
Really?
From the real, yeah.
Oh, wow.
They had a very different courtship, though.
Mm-hmm. That's really sad. It's really sad that, she...
But I think that's more of an indication of how she didn't like being Empress, but she did like him.
Oh. That... I know she likes him. I know she likes him a lot. It's reminiscent of the fact that it's like, yeah, you were not raised or prepared for this kind of responsibility. Not like your sister, who's probably brought up with all of these ridiculous things in her brain. And, Elizabeth is suffering the consequences.
I just don't think she really has the temperament
that
is required for this. You have, you can tell, when she had her big tantrum and storming through the palace and, throwing things, usually when you have, an upsetting day as, the politician's wife, you lock yourself in a room and you cry in dignified silence.
Yes.
But she is like, no, I'm upset. Everyone must know.
She's like, no, I'm tearing off all of the clothes I can possibly get my hands on, with the exception of this damn corset that I've been laced to death in. And I'm gonna storm up those stairs and fling myself on the bed and,
That was such a funny shot, though, because you could see, her feet
her filthy feet sticking out from underneath the dress. Oh my god!
I know we shit on Matron, but I was sort of on her side when I was like, you cannot walk through an iron foundry barefoot. That's disgusting. That is filthy.
Yeah.
And then out to the yard where the horses are.
Oh. Yeah. Oh, Elizabeth, you need to think before you do some of these things. Oh.
There was because it's you have so many shoes, right?
She's getting rid of shoes them 2 times a day.
Every day. But she could have donated the shoes after the fact, gone, hey, I've worn these shoes today, give them to the girl at the iron foundry I visited. Go home and do it.
Damn.
Why are we making... making this big show of it and then walking out barefoot. There's like... When Franz was saying, like, she had, like, her bleeding heart, I was like, yeah, that's kind of, like, true. Where she is all emotion and no logic ever, like, comes into her head. Like, she's just, she does not think.
Yeah.
And that's so frustrating. I just want to be like, you're so close to doing the right thing, but you make things worse.
Oh,
it's
man.
frustrating.
So, what about Mommy Dearest?
Oh,
Sophie! You know what? She reminds me of Cersei Lannister from Game of Thrones. She really
She's
does.
a bit more likable.
Yeah, but yeah, she reminds me of Cersei Lannister.
A weird sort of creepy, I have to be in charge of everything. Controlling.
Yeah.
I really, like, this episode, I really thought she was flailing to try and, like, gain control over Franz. And it's just not, like, nothing she's trying is working.
Yeah.
And I think as a reaction to that, and, like, the nonsense that is going on, she's lost her power over him and is now trying to get a firmer grasp on Elizabeth because that's something she feels like she can control, and even that's not really working. So, like, at the beginning of the season, I thought she was quite methodical and level-headed, and I just don't feel like she is anymore. Like, she's making lots of
she's starting to scrabble, you know?
Yeah,
and
I
not
feel
the
like
game.
She's not thinking.
Yeah. She's reacting. She's doing a lot of reacting. And I know that Elizabeth has thrown her, you know, off her rhythm. And, you know, if Sophie is able to bring Elizabeth to heel, which,
without it.
yeah, good luck with that, sister. You know, then she will be able to have that to, wheel over Franz, since, you know, Elizabeth seems to be infiltrating his heart and other portions of his anatomy.
I also think, like, remember that line last week where she was like, oh, Franz looks really happy, thank you. I was, like, thinking about that, and she's not happy Franz is happy. She was actually more in control of him when he was miserable. And now that he's happier and more fulfilled in his private life, he's exerting more control over his political life, and she is pissed.
Yeah. I mean, hell, who knows? She may wish that her other idiot child takes over a coup.
Max.
Yeah.
I also want to quote something from the book I was reading on Elizabeth, because I think it's a good insight into one of the themes of this episode, which is the formality of palace life versus, like, Elizabeth. So, the quote is, by nature, Elizabeth was warm-hearted and fair-minded. All these good traits which Sissy demonstrated throughout her childhood were now worthless, even a drawback. To lack aristocratic pride was seen in Vienna not as an advantage, but as a deficiency. So was any lack of respect for the formalities. The Viennese court, even the sovereignty of the emperor and the high position of the imperial family were based in large part on protocols and ceremony. Truth and authenticity were not important here. The aspects Sissy saw as pure formality had great political significance after 1848. They raised the ruling family far above ordinary mortals, allowing it to become unapproachable, untouchable, and the family was the visible expression of God's grace.
Jeez.
So that's from The Reluctant Empress by Brigitte Hermann, who I've quoted a lot. But I thought that was perfectly just encapsulating the tension that Elizabeth has with becoming this higher being, this sort of imperial goddess figure.
Yeah.
She just wants to be a normal person, which is fair enough, but then also, you should have said no when he proposed.
Like, if you want to be a normal person, don't sign up to become, you know, God's creature on earth, okay? Dang.
And it's very, like, weird for us because we have a very different relationship with royal families now. But the idea of them being, like, chosen by God to rule over people, like, there's a very religious aspect to the emperor and the empress that we don't really believe in now, but was very, very important to their grip over the society. And I think that's why they include the archbishop so much on the show, because that is an aspect of the show. And you can sort of tell that Sophie is quite Catholic and religious, because she's always wearing a crucifix and kind of... Though she is very, very gay. So that's also a question. Can't really sort of square that.
Yeah.
But
that would be problematical, Miss Sophie.
Yeah. But then we've not seen her act on it. Maybe she's like, if we don't have the full sex, it's okay. I don't know, question mark. But cheating on my husband, that's fine. Oh, Sophie, you are a contradiction.
Yes, Lord. Sophie is a mess.
I still love her, though. She's so, weirdly complex.
Yeah.
You also got to think, like, there's not many roles like this for women of her age and vintage, shall we say, where she's, like, still kind of hot. She's got power. She's just as important as the two leads. Like, this was a great role for an actress.
Oh, yeah.
Very happy.
She must be having a ball.
In those dresses? Max, though, the other member of the family.
Yeah. Maxie.
How are we feeling?
Oh, God. Well, I have to tell you that, ever since I switched over from hearing it dubbed in English to listening to the original voice track, his voice always catches me by surprise, because the actor, whoever did the voice work for him in the dubbed version, his voice is lower, much lower. And so I hear Max say something, and it just, I have to just stop myself from laughing, because it's like, oh, you sound like a cartoon. Oh dear. Okay.
It works though.
It does.
It's like, I can't take you seriously.
Yeah, it does. It works beautifully. But
especially when he's giving his speeches.
Yes.
It doesn't make, I'm like, your voice does not work for Sid. You compare his speech to the one Franz does earlier in the episode, and you contrast those two, and it's like, one is clearly play acting at being emperor and not doing a very good job.
Yes. Oh man. But yeah, I don't know why it surprised me that we would be getting in so deep with him and the coup.
The coup.
But yeah, then, you think back, well, we only have 6 episodes. So, of course we're going to be driving straight for it. There's no opportunity for rest break. Because
Can you believe we're 5 episodes in, and this is the first time Max has tried to think about how his mother would think about this coup?
I know. It's like, dude.
What was he thinking?
Dude, you should have been working on this in episode 2.
Yeah.
But
honey.
But I think I found it very surprising that there were so many individuals who were like in on the plan. When he's having his meeting with all these folks, it's like, damn, it's not just, like 3 or 4. We're talking 15, 20.
Oh, Franz is going to have to get rid of the whole cabinet.
Yeah.
All of them. And then they were saying they'd set up a network. They had set up a network with the newspapers and...
God.
God, it's gone pretty far.
Boy, they're going to be gallows all up and down the streets of Vienna. Trying to take care of all these crazies.
I don't think there is. Right. the way I think this is going to play out is Sophie is going to find out about this, be like, we can't have this leaking. No one can know this has happened. This will make us look weak. And she will cover it up for Max, and Max will get away with some fuckery, because that's what rich boys do. Because if I was Sophie, I would never allow him to hang for this, because it makes Franz look so incredibly weak that his own brother was trying to overthrow him.
Yeah.
Like,
that's a really good point, Rita.
I'm the Slytherin. I think about things.
You got that strategery thinking going on.
I really loved the scene with the Archbishop. I can't believe I was, like, impressed by an Archbishop.
Yeah. Especially given his previous appearance.
Hated him previously, but, you know.
But no, he crushed it. That was great. You can't even recite the Lord's Prayer. Like, oh, snap!
And I like that he got to the heart of the matter of what is wrong with Max as a leader. It's like, literally, why are you doing this? You don't have any plans or any ideals. You were just doing this to boost your own ego.
Yeah.
Do you think this desperate power play on his part is motivated by his grief?
Could be. We have yet to find out who this dead fiancé is.
I mean, I know.
Oh,
do you want to know? Spoilers?
Is it gonna like destroy me?
Oh no. I mean, do you care about dead historical figures?
Nah.
What? Okay. So it was Princess Maria Amalia of Brazil. Maria Amalia. She was princess of the Empire of Brazil and a member of the Brazilian branch of the House of Braganza. Which, by the way, so relieved we're getting into Portuguese names. Can I just...
like my mother tongue.
Thank you, finally. Nothing German. Her father was Pedro I. He was the first ruler of the quotation marks around independent Brazil. Though she, interestingly, never lived in Brazil. She was his daughter from his second marriage, and she was born in France and grew up in Europe and in Portugal particularly. Max was, while he was serving in the Austrian Navy, in 1853, which is around the time... No, 1852, which is actually a similar time to when Franz met Elizabeth. He was on a stopover in Portugal, and he paid a visit to her and her mother because, of course, they were related.
Of course.
Distant cousins. They apparently fell in love, like, instantly. But, like, the next month after that, Amalia contracted scarlet fever, which then developed into tuberculosis. And she died. Wow. She was only 22.
Oh, that's sad.
The impact of her death is apparently what eventually led him to try to take over Mexico in this really roundabout way, because her brother became Emperor of Brazil. So Max was like fascinated by Brazil, went over, visited the country, was like, I really want to make this work in other parts of South America. So he agreed to become Emperor of the Mexican Empire, believing he could sort of recreate Brazil. But instead, he just ended up, you know, fucking Mexico up some more. So this poor little woman ended up playing a huge part in South American history.
Wow. That's
just
amazing.
By being very pretty.
That's amazing.
I wonder if, like, they're sort of using the same kernel that led him to fuck up Mexico as the reason that he is fucking up the Habsburg Empire. Like, it's sort of similar vibes.
Do we know if he actually ever tried to start a coup in Austria? Or is that just all pretend stuff?
There was a huge rivalry between the brothers, but I don't think he ever... I think this is pretend. But then again, like, if my theory about them covering it up is true, would we ever know if he attempted it?
Of course not.
So, he's enough of a dick to do it. I feel like...
I wouldn't put it past him.
Wouldn't put it past him.
Not at all. This kind of thing is in his wheelhouse.
By the way, that ring, she was like, oh, that looks like an engagement ring. And then you see the close-up of the ring, it looks like all his other rings on his finger. What were they thinking?
I don't know.
That was ugly.
It really didn't have any kind of flair.
Also, like, how big were her fingers that this ring would fit on? The things I think about, instead of thinking about, oh, what a tragic backstory that makes him sympathetic, I'm like, God, her knuckles must have been huge.
Oh, God, Rita, you kill me. Oh, Lord.
Speaking of terrible people.
Yes.
The return of
Polar Bear Chick. Except now she's looking like some kind of plucked rooster or something. Or unplucked rooster.
I was getting sort of like Raven vibes.
Yeah. Yes.
Ooh. Or maybe a vulture. Maybe a vulture.
I think a vulture would probably be much more appropriate.
Yeah.
But, oh my God, she was like the last person I had hoped to see return to the castle. And, she made him beg.
At first, like, I want props for calling out her thing being power and control and not her being actually into him. Because her whole vibe was like, she was the executive of some kind of movie production company and she was gonna use him for sex. It was...
Oh yeah, call her the Harvey Weinstein of the Empress.
Yeah, very classic Predator move, wasn't it? Just
definitely. Oh, she is just vile.
I really, that whole scene was just traumatic to watch. It's just like, he looks terrified.
And when he finally gave in and started kissing her, I was just like, no! Stop that right now!
The thing is, like, he kept his face still for so long. It was like, he was just like, okay, I don't want to do this. You know, like, if I just stay still, maybe she'll stop.
Maybe she'll stop.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
I do find it, like, really interesting that they've subverted the, like, usual dynamic of, like, he's an emperor and he's a man, and you would think he would have all the power there, but he just looked so vulnerable, like, the whole time.
Well,
like, he was trying to play it off, but the actor was like so tense, like his whole body was just the stillest it's ever been. Like, it was sort of like he was an animal in headlights.
Yes,
but he put himself there on purpose. He sort of like knew it was going to happen, but had no choice.
Oh, Franz. Oh my gosh. Well, when you think about it, this entire show has really been about feminine power. Because when you think about all of the female characters in this, they're all wielding power and their positions in order to be able to accomplish X. Fill in the blank. And the male characters are definitely not in your typical space when you think about men back in those days. Yes, it's a patriarchal society, but these women have got them all lined up straight and fancy, and don't mess with them because
sexually assault you.
Yeah,
just
don't
watch out.
Yeah, don't mess with them because they'll get their little claws out, and you'll be reduced to next to nothing. So yeah, very interesting how this series has kind of flip the script on your traditional roles that you would see in drama in this period, in this time period.
I also thought this scene, you know how this show loves its parallels.
Mm-hmm.
It paralleled the scene between Elizabeth and Alexander in the previous one, and it's blocked out and shot in a very similar way. And I think they were intentionally trying to mirror those two. But I think Franz and Elizabeth, like I said, are very different people. Elizabeth is an idealist and she would be like, fuck off. And Franz is more like a pragmatist and he's like, if I piss her off, then I'm in a bigger hole than I was in before.
Right.
I just feel so terrible for him.
Yeah.
He's literally willing to let himself be assaulted for the good of the country.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nobody deserves to be put in that situation. And I hope Elizabeth smacks the shit out of Polar Bear Chick.
Me too. Girl fight! Girl fight!
Just rip those bird feathers out of her.
Seriously.
I hope something horrific happens to her. And Franz doesn't have to actually fulfill his side of the bargain.
Yeah.
Fake leontine. Slash Ava.
Yes,
I don't
Rita,
know what to call
you
her anymore.
called it. You called it.
Yeah, I know. Round of applause.
Yes. Yes.
No, but I think it's just a testament to the writing. They were able to breadcrumb that quite nicely, so that when it was happening, I was like very excited for myself. It's like, oh, this is really bad for leontine, but great for me.
Yeah, it's awesome for me. Yes. Oh man, and the way that they did this in the first minute and a half, 2 minutes of the show, was just like, okay, you have me. I'm not going to blink now because God only knows what else you might wind up doing. That was just amazing. And I literally sat there slack-jawed, staring up at the TV like, what?
I was surprised at how brutal her death was. It wasn't just like they killed her. It was like they slit her throat.
Yeah.
Like, that is a horrible way to go.
Yeah.
And then Egon spat on her.
Yeah.
It made me sort of less warm to leontine. I know, she was shown being much kinder to the body than her boyfriend, but she's still really complicit in the brutal death of this poor girl who probably isn't really responsible for the Empire's existence. She's just a woman from
out in the sticks.
Was it
someplace.
Romania? Yeah. Yeah, it's just,
Oh,
it's that's not, I get that the institution is corrupt and you start the revolution, blah, blah, blah. But I couldn't personally be complicit in murder like that.
No. And you can see now that Ava has had the opportunity to be in court and get to know Elizabeth, and like Elizabeth, how she is now like, do we really have to do this? Really? Because I don't know if I want to do this. And it's like, dude.
She got the information about, how, oh, yeah, they're going to do the revolution now. And she didn't say shit to Elizabeth the whole time. I was like, just tell her they're going to kill Franz.
I know.
And she just didn't say anything.
Not a word.
I sort of appreciate that maybe, there's a bigger picture and she's thinking of that. But, oh my God, it's complicated, you know? I have very complicated feelings about this character. And it's, another female character that is not straightforward. She's not, just a cool, nice girl who's very nice to Elizabeth. There's also, she killed someone.
Yeah.
So that sort of lingers.
Yeah, this is an incredible series. So good.
And the acting is incredible because you could see that actress sort of, as she's bonding with Elizabeth, also trying to pass through all the complicated emotions of I know something horrible is about to happen to all of us. And just the emotions playing out silently was like very, that last scene of those two together was both moving and horrifying.
Yeah.
Like that's, I think that's how I would describe the show.
Moving and horrifying at the same time.
Yeah.
Oh man. I am afraid for next week.
I really am. You know, the tension has got too much and like bloodshed is coming. Bloodshed. Ugh.
Yeah.
So themes. We were very heavy-handed with the birds again.
Birds were in the house
with a vengeance. Yeah. I mean, bird noises. People were wearing birds. Sophie was looking at a caged bird. It was just. What's interesting is like this week I noticed that like all of the women are being associated with birds, and then I was like, you know, Franz never has like a bird theme. What is his theme? Maybe it's the railway.
He wants a twain. He wants his twain.
But I definitely think that they're trying to link like femininity with the bird theme in a particular way, because you got Sophie, Polar Bear Chick, Leontine, and Elizabeth definitely all like birdie. So that's something to think about as we watch the last episode. Another theme, I think, particularly as we were talking about the Leontine death coming right at the beginning of the episode, I was thinking about how Hida's brother was right at the end of the episode, so we've got like a full circle of violence theme going, because you start off with the nobility and then you end with a member of public. I don't want to call them common, but just
what are the peasants? I mean, they're the commoners. I know.
It just feels very wrong to call someone a peasant, but there we go.
The workers.
The poor people.
The workers.
There is just like a repeated cycle here. And we got that flashback to Franz being attacked. And that probably led to the gendarmerie going extra violent and defensive and scared of the public. Yeah. Which then leads to more attacks and deaths, which leads to, you know, we're going to get retribution. We're going to get revenge from the people, which then leads to another cycle of violence against the Emperor, which then makes that, you know, it's just like a Mobius strip of violence. Yeah. It just bleeds into more violence and more violence. Yeah. I was thinking, like, that's a very typical dynamic that you see when a state is sort of collapsing. And, you know, I was reading about the French Revolution earlier in the year, and there was a lot of that with the circles of violence that happened. I see happening again in this. I know the Habsburg Empire doesn't fall apart for another, like, 50 years. Yeah. But I truly, like, it's on the slow decline. I don't feel like there is any way of breaking the chain of violence without, like, a revolution and the whole empire just being dissolved. Because
there is nothing that can be done. If we want to think about, you know, more metaphors, you know, it's like, this is a runaway train.
Trains.
So Franz is getting his train, just a metaphorical one.
Not the one he wanted.
Not the one he wants.
And so when Elizabeth was putting forward her argument that, like, oh, they hate us because of the way the gendarmerie treat us, and I was like, okay, but it isn't as simple as that, because they hate you for a lot of reason, and if the gendarmerie stopped attacking you, you would still all die. Like,
yeah.
I feel like the dynamic that's around the gendarmerie is that Sophie relies on them a lot for defense, because she was basically in charge during the revolution when it hit previously, and she obviously built like this dynamic with the head of the gendarme, and Franz doesn't trust him as much, so he keeps going to her, and it's like, yeah, very fucked up. But then I was also like, you know, as much as I hate the head of the gendarmerie, when the crowd was building up outside, the ironworks and he was advising Elizabeth to leave, it wasn't just for her safety. It was for the safety of the crowd as well.
Yeah.
Like, it's obviously not like the best way to deal with a crowd is to beat the ever-living shit out of them. But a lot of that is coming out from a place of fear. And I think, like, everybody in the show is fucking terrified all the time and just reacting in, like, the worst way possible. Speaking of, I think another theme that we got in this episode was men's mental health, because you've got Fran suffering from PTSD, which, by the way, when they did the flashback and he started having his little attack, I was like, in retrospect, I think, like, he's been suffering from the obvious signs of PTSD in this show, and it just, like, never occurred to me.
Yeah.
Because he was really detached and emotionless and honestly a little bit hopeless in the first few episodes. And that's one of the symptoms, is just being unable to connect emotionally.
Yeah.
And then with Max, depression, question mark?
I'd say probably depression. Inferiority complex doesn't help anybody's depression, by any great stretch. So yeah, I mean, this is a family that needs some good old couch time with the therapist, because they're a mess.
Just a complete mess. I think the way these two deal with their mental health crises is having, like, a larger impact on society, obviously, and especially the women around them.
Yeah.
I hope we get more of this in season 2, because I was like, yo, PTSD from Franz would explain so much of his personality.
We just have to hope he survives.
Spoiler alert for real life. He does live to see World War One, so you got a few more years. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And we get a season 2. Can you imagine a season 2 without Franz?
Oh, yeah, there'd be no point. No,
unless Elizabeth is now the Emperor.
much to Sophie's chagrin. Oh, man. No, I think Sophie would just kick her out and say, I'm taking it. Silly girl.
Favorite scenes?
Well, I think we talked about the peach throwing scene. That was a delightful scene. I like makeup sex, so that was enjoyable. You have to give them credit, given the fact that they're on Netflix, and as we've seen in Bridgerton, they can do a whole lot on Netflix. And this production is being fairly
tasteful,
fairly reserved in comparison.
I don't know that I need to see them fucking. Like,
no,
it's not the vibe of the show. I think it's too dramatic, and there's, like, too high a stakes to worry about, like, the Bridgerton fucking. Like, Bridgerton, nobody is going to die.
True enough. Unless they're going to choke on a... Yeah, unless they're going to choke on a pastry or something like that. But, no, I think that scene was wonderful. I liked the scene with Franz addressing the soldiers. I thought that was really, really beautifully done. And again, the acting is just out of this world.
Even the extras were giving, like, an incredible performance. They did these long close-ups on these faces, and I was like, wow, extras are bringing it.
I mean, the little girl at the iron foundry, that scene with her and her brother and the little, what I'm thinking were like loganberries or some kind of wild berry. That was really sweet. I honestly did not see that he was going to wind up being the person dead, until they got to the point where we saw him.
I don't know. I was too distracted by everything else happening that I forgot about them. And then the stinger happened and I was like, oh shit. Who's going to look after this little girl now?
Uh-huh. Well, and I was thinking, ooh, red berries, red shirt.
Oh, we should have known. The clues are there.
The clues are there. I thought that the scenes with the little girl, I thought were really great, including the one when Elizabeth is speaking with her. Everybody's bringing it, man.
Even like little Lidsy Woodsy, like when he's telling her about what he does when he's nervous, and you're like, you completely forget that he's a child actor. Like, these children should not be so damn charming.
I know. I loved him. I thought he was great. And I think, what was the other? Oh, the scene with the Archbishop and Max.
Oh, good.
Another one. I mean, this episode had so many great scenes in it. It's kind of hard for me to pick. But
I think the standout sort of visual moment for me, though, was when she was in the foundry and there were like the sparks floating in the air. Like the cinematography with that was just, it was so beautiful. Yeah. She looked so out of place in that big puffy dress.
That huge dress.
There was also this other shot of when Max was in the cabinet meeting. Mm-hmm. Well, we call it a cabinet meeting. It's like
his war
anti-cabinet meeting because they're planning a coup. But they were in. He was sat on one side of the table, and then you get like a group of like 11 or 12 men all grouped together, sort of en masse. It was sort of like a painting. You were sort of like, why would they be set up like that? But it's purely done just visually to sort of show us that like this is a group. They're a group and like not one individual person. Oh God. Every scene. Let's just say every scene was her favorite scene.
Yeah. I can't think of a least favorite. Because even though the scene where they are attacking Leontine, even though that was pretty horrible and brutal, it was done it was perfect. It was the perfect way to just like yank you into the show.
It was weirdly beautiful, like the serene, the countryside. It lulls you in, and then it's like, oh, they're gonna kill her. Absolutely brutal. Yeah. I guess like one of the things I think was sort of weaker was the fake Leontine / Ava, and Alexander von Bach.
Oh yeah, being wooed by von Bach.
Yeah, I would have preferred if that had been established more previously. I know we got that scene of her checking him out before, but it feels like they've never actually had a conversation before. Like, I don't recall them ever talking, so it was sort of strange to have him just be like, I knew there was something different about you. It's like, I've literally never seen you speak to her. But whatever. He's an improvement on Egon, so, you gotta root for it.
Definitely. Go for it, girl. How about your favorite costumes and locations?
Well, the blue dress with the yellow underskirt was iconic. It was just such a good look.
Yeah, and just beautiful.
The colours were amazing, and like I said, the shot of her lying on the bed where you could see all of the layers, it was like, it made it even funnier. And her blackened feet. Yeah.
Sticking out at the end. I was just like, wow, one of these things do not go with one another.
I kind of liked there was like a Jackie O vibe earlier with that outfit where it had the pillbox hat with the and the little veil, and like even her little coat was like very modernist sort of 60s vibes. That sort of triggered like the memory of Jackie O, and like I think consider Jackie O to be like the ultimate politician's wife. She is like going out on visits and meeting the populace and being very seen. But then I also, you can't help but associate the hat with the way Jackie O's husband was killed. So there's like this weird association happening where I was sort of like, is that like a slight nod to what's happening with Franz and they're attempting to kill him? I mean, that might just be me thinking too deeply about it, but
gosh, I hadn't even thought of that. That's great.
I mean, I see a pillbox hat and I think Jackie.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it's iconic. That day made pillbox hats eternally just hers. And so, you see one, and I would be surprised if someone's mind didn't go in that direction. Because, that was such a horrible, horrible day. And, do we even know whatever happened to that pillbox hat? I don't know.
Ooh. I know they kept
they kept the
jacket.
Suit. Yeah, they kept the suit.
Because it had blood evidence or something on it.
Uh-huh.
But that hat stayed...
Yeah.
I don't know how that hat stayed on her head, but it did.
Yeah, and it was weird. It had those two, I don't know what, were they like pearls or what? Yeah, two little pearls right in front of her eyes.
Embroidery or something. I don't know what it was, but it was slightly off-putting, but I was like, I love this look. I don't know what it is.
Uh-huh.
I love whenever they put her in a veil. Any costumes or locations?
With the exception of the Iron Foundry, it all took place at court, didn't it?
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
Maybe you like Franz's little speech to the troops.
To the troops, yeah. I still can't get that scene out of my head of him with the troops.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the scenes that stayed with me after watching it, because, you saw his vulnerability in a big way.
It was the scene that most impressed me as him as a leader. You can see what he would bring to the table compared to anybody else in that family. Let's say Max. Max could not give that speech. Max would make that about himself, about the glory.
Absolutely. Yep.
There's real empathy with Franz.
With Franz. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any scene that takes place in their bedroom, I love that bedroom.
Yeah. I love the scene where he wakes up and she's not there, and like the crease in, like, this is so extra from me, but like you could tell she had been in there because you hadn't actually seen if she was in bed with Franz, but you could see like the spot where she had been with her little outline. Like they actually bothered to like get her to lie down on the bed, and there's little details like that which just make you like your heart hurt. I was like, oh, they missed each other.
Yeah, these guys, gosh, in any other situation, I would love to see them. Oh, hello, Jack. We are joined by my cat, Jack.
Hi, Jack. Does he ship it too? Jack, do you ship it?
Ship? What ship? What does ship mean? Any other show, they would be just the most wonderful couple to watch. And the situation that they're in now, it's just hope. There is no happy ending that is going to come out of this.
Just more assassination attempts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Performer of the episode.
Oh, do we have another hour? Everyone gets mad props for this week's episode. I think that the actress that plays Ava, she was really great.
Yeah.
Our little Ludwig, Franz Ludwig, is that his name?
Yeah. Everyone's a Franz.
He was great. I love his hair.
Yes.
He's got this like really wild, dramatic hair swoop.
I love how ginger everyone is as well.
Yeah.
Just like So cute with the freckles.
Yes. I thought that he was great. He captured my attention in all of the scenes that he was in. What a sweet little boy. Obviously, I think the actor and actress that are leads were incredible, multifaceted, a real joy to watch. And as much as I hate him, Max, damn it.
Such a good performance.
Yes.
Such a psycho.
Yeah. Psychotic? Wow. What a performance. I'm just glad he's not like that in real life, or at least I hope he's not.
I don't think everyone seems to like him, so... I mean, every performance was amazing.
Yeah. This is such a great show!
Aren't you glad we did this show?
Yes! Yes. It makes me wonder how well it's doing on Netflix, because this is just class A.
Well, I got a season
television.
2, but
yeah.
So it must have done well. I think it did really well in Germany. I don't know about. I feel like it came out at a time where everyone was watching The Crown or something, so that was annoying. Yeah, I think the scenes that impressed me the most were all Fran's scenes, but then when you think about all the different scenes he got this week with the flashback,
yes,
and the speech to the troops, and then the scene where he's sexually assaulted, and then even the scene where he's getting peaches thrown at him, and the comic timing of him just looking slightly grumpy and then trying to put the peach back on the plate.
Yes.
Like, he had a really good episode, but you sort of expect that from him, and he's getting really great scenes written for him. Even the woman that plays the matron was, like, sensational. I felt almost sort of sorry for the matron this episode.
Yeah, because, Sophie's gunning for her.
Exactly.
If this keeps happening, your neck is going to be on the line. Like,
imagine being put in charge of Elizabeth, and then she does this on her first outing, where she, sort of starts a riot and gets people killed. Because she won't leave when she's supposed to.
Yeah. How do you solve a problem like Elizabeth?
How do you solve a problem
like Elizabeth?
It's an impossible task.
Yeah, seriously. Hats. I'm giving this a 5 without hesitation.
Well, we decided to call them birds now, remember? So it's...
Oh, birds, yes. Did I say hats? See, I'm still thinking about that damn pillbox hat. Birds.
I've incepted this into your mind. How many birds?
Yes. 5.
5. I think as a penultimate episode, I think this was sensational.
Yeah.
Really excellent. I'm excited and scared for the finale. Which is what you want, really.
Exactly.
Okay, inbox. Hi, Michelle and Rita. I'm loving this series so much. Sorry, this email is a bit long, but here I go. I think this week's episode should be called Everything is Unraveling. Everyone seems to be coming to a crossroads in their lives. Leontine is growing conflicted. Perhaps she's starting to see that even some in the aristocracy are trapped in their lives, but do see the plight of others, but are just as hamstrung to help. She's being noticed. The accountant... the accountant is obviously genuinely developing notions of a relationship with her. She can't seem to believe it. She's questioning whether killing the Emperor is going to help anyone in the end. And she's developing a friendship with Elizabeth, who confides in her at the end of the episode. What's my purpose here? Indeed. For both of them. Elizabeth and Franz are trying in their own ways to change life for the poor, but obstacles just keep coming their way. Poor Franz. It's not going as he planned. After seeing off the troops to war, he becomes overwhelmed and has a tantrum and smashes his train set. And then, feeling terrible, he apologizes to Theo, who says, even when it seems that all is lost, there's always cause for hope. Then into the room walks Elizabeth. God help him in Austria. things just go from bad to worse.
Yes.
Max, God, he's just descending into madness judging by the scene in front of the mirror. Even his monkey stares at him thinking, seriously, Maxie, get a grip. But we do hear about a lost love, a dead fiancé. Then that confession with the priest, I'm sure he could think of a couple of sins he could confess to.
Yeah.
Geez, if you want to ask for the church's backing, at least play the game. But the priest is onto him and calls him out. Max's plan is starting to fray around the edges. Even Elizabeth turns him down after an offer to run away through the tunnels to Prague. Let's not talk about that.
Yeah.
And then there's Sophie, always one step behind Franz, prodding him endlessly. When chaos reigns, we impose our control, we don't pacify. Oh, Sophie, you're an intelligent woman. Have you not learned anything from what's happening around Europe? No.
The answer is no.
I guess this episode is the beginning of the legend of Sissy. Her recognition of the plight of the poor and atrocious conditions they live and work in, and the people's love for her kindness is growing, especially when she gives the little girl her shoes. But unless there is a marked change in the palace's views, Elizabeth's life seems doomed along with the poor. But who knows, maybe Theo is right. There's always cause for hope. Ciao, Maria. P.S. I'm not liking the return of Louise, Polar Bear Chick. Trouble, I say.
Oh, they got trouble with a capital T.
Thank you for writing in, Maria. Oh,
yes.
Reminding me of everything that happened is just bringing me stress. What are we going to do about Polar Bear Chick?
Well, next week's description for episode 6 is not doing my heart any good. No. Quite frankly, the title of this is The God Who Us Has Freedom Sent. That's a doozy.
Especially compared to the shoes.
Yeah, the shoes. They've been rocking all of these like 2-word titles for these episodes. And now they're laying this on us? Crap. Well.
Got biblical up in this bitch.
Yeah, Elizabeth spends her time partying with Maximilian while Franz is desperate to reconcile with her. Leontine gets herself into a precarious situation. Elizabeth!
What are you doing, girl?
What?
I thought she finally rejected him. And now we're back to her partying with him.
What the actual F?
I don't know.
Come on. Oh.
I don't want to see any of this.
I have stress.
Why can't Max
go
off into his little tunnel and leave us alone?
You know, you need to just go away, Max, because you're not doing any of us any damn good at all.
Okay, well, on that depressing note, that's all from us. We'll be back next week to discuss the final of season 1 of The Empress. If you have opinions and would like them to be read out in our inbox section, then please email us at inthebooksnetwork@gmail.com. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at inthebooks, and please remember to rate and review and share this podcast with your friends. Thank you for listening. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.